I think everyone should just stop what you're doing. Put 988 in your phone right now, everybody.
Right.
I put it in my phone. I put it under a lifeline, so it's at the very top of my contacts. If you open up all your contacts, it's at the very top.
If you don't even know what that conversation looks like, still pick up the phone and call, because it could be the beginning of your conversation. And if you're feeling like someone in your orbit is suicidal, it doesn't have to be you. You can call 988 and you'll be able to talk to people. It can just begin that conversation.
Yeah, you're not going to get scooped up and thrown into a padded room on a 5150. Like, that's not what's going to happen.
And you're not getting an armed response.
Yeah.
You're getting a human on the other end. And it's not recorded. I think that's helpful to know. That it's not, that 988 calls are not recorded.
Well, everybody, welcome back to Success Rewritten. I'm your host, Emily Lomenzo-Washkovic. And today we have a group conversation, which I am so thrilled about. I have Jay Laughrey with me, as well as Charlotte Maya. These two have known each other long before I was ever introduced to them. They both share the fact that they were impacted by suicide. And I'm really excited to talk about this topic. I'm honored that I got to talk to each of you one-to-one. So if anyone wants to know more about your individual stories, they can listen to those one-to-one conversations. But we all kind of agreed having a group conversation about this topic is going to be so valuable because we have different perspectives and points of view, but we're also talking about a topic that doesn't get talked about a lot. And I think the more voices you have around the table, the more you can understand the topic from different lenses. Before we even jump into who each of you are and who it is that you lost, I want to just address our listener with the fact that, you know, this topic is rarely talked about, and it's a lot because of stigma. But I also think there's this element of like, I don't know what to say, or I don't want to say the wrong thing. And even when we got together last night and had dinner together, there was a couple times where we were like, let me think about how I want to say this. And it's like, we're not being recorded, you know, like it's just us. But that is a big thing that I want to address. And this is going to be an imperfect conversation. And what I love is that we're going to teach each other language in the process. You know, I had the joy of reading Charlotte's book. I feel like this gave me language. But having this dialogue, we might say things and then navigate together a better way to say it, or how that maybe is interpreted by people living through this. So I'm honored that you're both here. I'm excited about this conversation, but I just want to preface with the fact that that's why I think this isn't discussed a lot, and I hope we can turn that around today. Okay, I'm going to start with Charlotte. Charlotte, tell everyone who you are and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm a writer. I didn't start off as a writer. I started off as a lawyer, so sometimes I refer to myself as a recovering attorney. I mean, being a writer is better for all the reasons. I'm a mother. I have 4 kids. I have 2 granddaughters. And now I forgot the question.
Just who you are.
I guess, I don't know. That's such a big question, Emily.
I know. I think you started perfectly. You are an author. And I mean, I kind of see you, now that I've read about your journey, as such a maternal figure in so many people's lives, not just your sons. I mean, you're a community builder. You're just someone who's living out here connected to other people through a variety of ways. I mean, whether it's a close relationship or, you know, just someone that you meet from yoga. I mean, you're a member of your community who shares your story.
Well, you know, it's so interesting that you talk about it like that because right after Sam died, and Sam died by suicide, I was 39, our children were 6 and 8, and he was 41. I was terrified that I would be ostracized from my community because of how Sam died. And what I found was the opposite. And thank goodness, right? It's like Jay said, we're not alone. We don't talk about suicide, but the thing that helps in suicide prevention and suicide postvention is talking about it. And like you started at the beginning talking about how do we talk about this? And personally, I'd rather have an imperfect conversation. So thank you for hosting and welcoming an imperfect conversation over no conversation. And there are some things that are preferable, like we talked about using the term died by suicide instead of committing suicide, because that term commit has connotations of criminality, and suicide is not a crime. I mean, okay, technically it's still defined as a crime in some jurisdictions, but it's a disease. And when we understand it as a disease, when we talk about suicide as an illness, then that takes away some of the stigma and shame and opens up a place to have a glitchy conversation, which is kind of how Jay and I started, is just jumping in to a conversation. Because when you find out you have that in common, and nobody wants to have that in common, but there's so many of us, it's like the filters come off. You just connect heart to heart, and that's where it starts.
Before I move on to Jay and how you two both met, tell us a little bit about Sam.
Sam was Sam was my first husband. He was we met in law school. Neither one of us was practicing law. After a few years, we had 2 children. Sam was a stockbroker. He was very smart. He was kind, warm, funny, but he was that guy who'd like sit in the back row and whisper to the person next to him, and he would say something just really low-key and very funny. Yeah. And you would hear someone laughing back there, and you knew that was,
there he is.
That was Sam and his shenanigans. He was very warm. He was a really wonderful father. He was the kind of father who would take days off work to go to parent-child conferences. He coached the kids' t-ball teams. He wanted to have dinner together every night. He'd read something one time that even if you can't carry a tune in a bucket, which he could not.
Yeah.
He was Cuban. Like, how can you not like, aren't you Ricky Ricardo? But
that wasn't part of the gene. That
wasn't part of the gene that he had. But sometimes we were a little like Ricky and Lucy. But he had read something somewhere that even if you can't carry a tune in a bucket, if you sing to your children, they will still become very musical. And our children are very musical. And he used to sing, for he's a jolly good fellow. And it was so funny to walk by the kid's bedroom and hear him singing for he's a jolly good fellow. It's not exactly a lullaby, but it's the only thing he knew. And so, he loved his kids. He loved me, and he was sick and we didn't know it.
Yep. Okay, Jay. Hi.
Hi.
You're really the one that kind of made this whole thing happen. And you and I were connected because you're a business owner. And just tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about your brother, Jeff. Just kind of want to get some background for people before we dive in more on the topic of suicide.
Yeah. As far as the business is concerned, I own and operate a pool maintenance company, Produce Pools. Husband, father, but most I'm a service to people. Like, I just love people. Yeah, and my brother was my mentor. He got me into the pool industry. And he suffered from depression for a very short amount of time, a 9-month period, and it was way too fast.
And both of these losses were a very long time ago, which is why I think this conversation has a little bit more depth, or I don't want to say depth, but it's a different conversation. Not only the world that we're in and the dialogue around mental health compared to when they both passed, but also I think just the general knowledge, like that this is something you might deal with, that it's mental, like that was not a part of the conversation when both of your loved ones were going through this. It was not something we had language for really at the time.
Yeah.
You were able to identify that you kind of knew that there was pain, physical pain mixed with this emotional stuff, but the word depression wasn't really in the mix. And in your case, it was. Your brother had kind of just started learning about that in the few months prior, correct?
Yeah.
Can you just share a little bit about kind of what that experience was like? Because you were there as his brother and you're kind of seeing certain things that felt not like him. And he was trying to get language for it, but there was not like, this all makes sense. It was much more unclear than that.
Yeah, it was a mystery to him and very frustrating to him. But he started worrying a lot about the economy. He was a business owner, new family, and he's just saw it was like there was a recession going on and an election, and he was just surrounding himself by a lot of this like worry. And then that's when kind of things started. He got this physical low back pain, and so he seeked out help for that, and turned out nothing was wrong, and was just brought on by mental, pain. And then he got on, antidepressants, and that wasn't working, and it was just it was there wasn't a lot of answers. It was frustrating for him and all of us. We wanted to. How can you help somebody that we just couldn't help him, as much as he was to kind of relieve some of that worry from him. It was tough.
Well, and what I think is so interesting about both of the experiences is even though your brother was starting to learn about it and Sam didn't have this language to assign to what he was going through, it was still so unknown. Like the language your brother had wasn't helping him feel like he better understood what was going on. It was almost more frustrating because he was getting told, well, no, nothing. No, it's okay. It looks good. It looks clear. And that, I think, mentally would be strain on anyone, right? Like you are not feeling yourself. You're trying to figure out how to get help and you're being told nothing's wrong.
Or you're being told by your doctor, you're going to be on these antidepressants for the rest of your life. Like I remember him extremely frustrated and discouraged at the same time. Like, oh, like that's like, I'm going to be like this. What one would think, oh, I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life because my doctor told me this, like I would be pissed and frustrated too,
Yeah.
in my own, I'm not depressed, but I'd be pissed about that.
Yeah.
Now, times that by 10 if somebody is going through depression. That would be a huge blow.
Right. Okay. Before we talk about both of the losses, let's talk about how you two met because that's fun for me to even find out that you met just doing regular old life stuff. I made the silly assumption that you met at a grief support group and you're both like, no, we met at yoga.
Yeah.
So tell me, take me back. How did you two meet?
Can I go first?
Yes.
So class concluded, and I didn't know her at all. But as we're putting our shoes on and wrapping up our mats and putting them away, I noticed she was wearing this beautiful ring, and I was curious about it, and I complimented her on her ring, and she started to tell me the story of her ring, and you can share that, please.
I will. So. Spoiler alert, I remarried. And my now husband had also been widowed. And he had given his first wife, who died from colon cancer, a solitaire. And Sam had given me a solitaire. So Tim wanted to do something different. And when he was looking at rings and he was at the jeweler, this one was already made. It looks kind of like an old-fashioned ring. It looks almost like a 4-leaf clover. And so Tim has 2 kids and I have 2 kids. And then when we got married, we combined our families. So there are 4 little diamonds surrounded by a little pave row of diamonds around all 4. And so for us, it sort of symbolized, when you're in your 40s and you get married for the second time, you've both been widowed and you've both got 2 kids. The kids are such an integral part of the coming together. And so for us, the ring sort of tells our whole story. There's like 3 little bands on each side coming to form a union. So it's hard when people ask about the ring or when they say something or they want to hear the story about it. It's like, okay, well, here's the short story of Tim and Charlotte. We were both widowed in 2007. We were introduced. We accidentally fell in love. Because, when you're a single parent with 2 kids,
It's brutal.
you're busy.
Yeah.
That doesn't even begin to describe it. I mean, it's like when I was reading this book, I was like, I'm child free for a reason. And now I'm really child free. Like, there's just being a parent is effing hard, even if you don't have a spouse that passes. I mean, it's just hard.
It's just plain hard. And when you're parenting grieving children and each one grieves in different ways and all 4 grieve in different ways, then yeah, it's hard.
And if people want to hear more about that, because I mean, I love the way that you share your personal journey so that other people can, learn from it. They can listen to our one-to-one interview where we talk a lot more about the journey with the kids and just that whole path that you walked as a mom whose husband died by suicide. And your journey is your brother. Go ahead. You look like you want to say something, Jay.
I do. Thank you. Because I don't want to gloss over this.
No, please.
Because of her ring, that's how we met. And
Right.
so I'm a curious person, and I'm like, oh, how did you lose, how did your husband pass away? And she's like, by suicide. And I'm like, oh, immediately. Immediately we're like, boom, connected. Right? Like I was like,
well, class
and
share
I'm also
time.
like, you were drawn to ask about that. Like, in my opinion, that was like a universal pull. That's another universe thread right there. Like, the universe made you ask about that. You're a curious person, but you two were meant to be connected and to know each other.
We were off and running. As soon as
we were off and running.
I'm like, oh, my brother died by, I didn't say by suicide at the time, but I reframed it later on because of Charlotte. But I'm like, me too. I lost my brother. And that was it.
Well, and we stood outside the studio doors because, the whole class left. Everyone had their shoes, their mat. They were gone. The owner of the studio's like, I got to lock up. So we're standing.
And we're like talking and like dragging our shit out.
Yeah, we were. And tears down all our faces, our collective faces, and just, swearing, laughing, crying, all the things.
All of it.
All the things. It just, this is why it's important for people to know there is community out there, because then when you find those people, and there's so many of us, suicide's the 10th leading cause of death in this country, and we don't talk about it. I mean, there's so many of us, and that connection, and you can just, like, the filters come off. You understand each other in a way. Now, every pain is different. Every grief is different. Every relationship is different. But there's something unifying about that loss if you are willing to be there in it. And I don't know if you remember what the weather was like, but I feel like it was cold. Like we were shivering out there, but we couldn't stop talking because when you have that connection with somebody who's real, it's really special.
It is special.
Do you guys remember when that was? Like, how long after your losses, roughly?
Oh, it was. When did your book come out? When did Sushi Tuesday come out?
I know,
2023.
So it was within that year that we met.
So maybe 2022.
Oh,
that we met.
So more recently than both the losses. I mean, you had more time that had passed since then. I feel like you've both learned a lot in your journey, not only about the people that you lost and what they were going through, but also just walking your own loss, right? And navigating your own grief. And the stigma that comes with you as the survivor and what you're navigating, whether that's how your relationships change, how your understanding of the world is different. And I wanted you guys to both be here because one of the first things you told me when you talked about Charlotte was she changed your entire perspective on your sister-in-law's loss.
Oh, yeah.
And so maybe let's just start there. I feel like you already were a student of what you were going through, trying to figure out how to support yourself and trying to play the right role for your family. And then your assumptions and your thoughts shifted a little bit. Do you remember what that transition looked like?
Oh, big time. When I read her book, we had our conversations, but the book goes in depth with that perspective. And I gained so much more knowledge and I guess I guess I could use the word respect in a way, but I didn't disrespect.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if that's the right word, but through her eyes, I understood more of what my sister-in-law went through. I was like, oh my gosh, she was going through so much stuff. Like way more than I thought. Like I knew, but I really did not know. Just being, may I?
Yeah.
Like just being, in my own words, being like ripped into two different directions with families. Like for an example, like for her, Sam's family and her new husband's Tim's family, and just the expectations of family traditions and like logistics and all that shiza, man. Like that is one thing that and then the loss as a mother that has to go through, like reading about that, and then just losing a husband. All of that, just gave me way more perspective on what my sister-in-law went through,
There was a point in your book when I was reading and I was like, I bet this hit Jay. Like, I bet this was a moment. And it was when you were describing, like, you had amazing support as well from Sam's cousin. And you had these people that were showing up as family members and they wanted to be your support system. But there was this period where he called them our kids and you said, they are my kids. And at first, when I was reading that, I was like, huh, like I had to stop for a minute. I was like, this communal effect of trying to support and help. But you didn't want to do it on your own, but you wanted to prove that you could do it on your own. And also, that was the facts. They were your kids and no one else was living the version of the loss that you were.
Right. And they had two parents and now they have one parent. And it's brutal. And the police came, Sam did not die at home. And the kids and I were out. So when I got home, the police were already at my house. And they sat me down. The kids, the policewoman sat with the kids in the car. And the policeman and the priest, I just kept staring at that collar. I'm like, this is not going to be good news. And they sat me down and they said, among other things, we will tell the children that their father died, but you have to tell them how. And we recommend that you tell them the truth because you do not want them to find out from somebody else. And on a day when nothing made sense, that made sense. And they were little. They were 6 and 8. The three of us fit in one chair. And that's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But no one else can do that. Mm-hmm. Like you said, the first responders, let's just do a little shout out to those first responders because
totally
they give you some guidance at a moment that you are totally unprepared for and you did not want. And that was good advice. And that level of sort of honesty and transparency really guided my journey forward with the children and with everybody else. There's, I don't know, that I am still grateful for that guidance, even though that was the hardest thing I've ever done. And I've got the top 10 bad days list is a little harrowing.
It's rough.
It's rough. But like we were joking last night, we know what a bad day looks like.
Yeah.
A lot of what people think is a bad day ain't it.
Ain't a bad day.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and last night we were all just going to the positive. I spilled a huge glass of water everywhere and we were all like, at least it wasn't Coke. At least it didn't get on your backpack. Like it's just like, we're going to that place because a bad day. People don't even know the half of it, And at the same time, a lot of people do and don't have anyone to help them. A lot of
people do.
Yeah.
And that's where that honesty and that transparency is sort of, in my opinion, a straight road to healing because the known and the honest truth is when you can face into it, then you can start to grapple with how do I manage now?
It'll set you free.
Something I want to talk about is what happens immediately after this happens. And I've always kind of heard that there's two big things that stand out. One is like all of the people that you thought were going to be there and show up, and like the surprise that not all of them are there. And at the same time, all these people that come through and are a solid ground below you that you never thought were going to hold that position.
Lasagna. That's the first thing that happens.
And it's so much food.
Baked ziti.
So much food. Nonstop.
And listen, we need it.
Totally. Because you ain't eating, homie. Like you are, it's like water maybe, and that's it. Like your body just does not, it's not thinking about eating food.
I think about the like I sometimes call it the holy trinity of healing: eating, sleeping, and breathing. You have to start there.
Yeah.
If you're not eating, you got to eat something. If you're not sleeping, then take medication if you need it, because sleeping is key to the whole process functioning. And breathing to me looks like, obviously breathing and maybe, box breathing, but also just getting outside.
Mm-hmm.
It can look like singing. It can look like yoga. It can look like meditation. It can look like going for a run. Whatever can keep you connected to your own body in those moments of healing. I think that's kind of the baseline where it starts. But then it is, listen, I had women whose names I did not know on my porch with dinner for me and my kids. I was so afraid, like I said, of being ostracized. And I was so impressed by how the community scooped us up and held us in all different kinds of ways. Like someone made a mixtape for us, and someone walked us to school when she noticed I was late every single day.
That one.
I know. And when I wrote the book, I had so many people who helped. I couldn't create characters out of all of them, so I called them the Janes.
I'm so glad you did that.
Janes are
I
like
would have been all over the place, let me tell you. But using that as the term and then giving them a descriptor, I was like, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
And I could just picture them. I could picture the slew of them.
Yeah.
There's like a Greek chorus of people who, and some were men too. But,
sure, of course.
I believe everybody has a light. Everybody in this world has a light that they shine that is uniquely theirs. And whatever that is, bring it. Because when anybody is suffering, bring that. Like if you're good at music, make a playlist. If you're good at cooking, yes, we need that. If you're organized, we need that. Like whatever your light is. And when you're suffering, when you're the one suffering, just say yes. Let them figure it out.
I was going to say that was a huge part of your journey, letting people help you.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I remember going to a funeral one day. A friend of ours' father passed away, and her and her mother were speaking. And they're very funny people. And one of the things is they said, out of great humor, is stop asking us if we're okay. Just stop it. And you know what? There's some truth to that. It's just like
we're
Charlotte
not okay.
saying, we're not okay, but we don't want to talk about. We don't ask me. Like we're jacked up right now. Thanks, but like the lasagna or the walks to the like that kind of stuff. That's what is really needed during these times.
Well, and one of
like
the worst
all
things,
that stuff is like key to helping.
One of the worst things you can do is say, "Let me know if you need anything," because now you're putting that on the person, and that's any loss, right? And so I love your advice, Charlotte, of like, think of what your unique light is. And you got to give suggestions. Like I learned that in supporting my close friends through things like that. Say, hey, I'm going to Trader Joe's. What can I pick you up?
Yes.
Or, it's suggesting a way that you can help. And no one's going to come up with a list of things that you can do. Especially not when they're struggling.
Well, I'll tell you, one of my friends came up with the list. And it was an Excel spreadsheet. And y'all, I started weeping when I saw it because it was lists of names, phone numbers, and things they were good at, whether it was plumbing or anything, art, like one of the Janes had the kids over to just do art in her art studio. And like, what a beautiful way for kids to explore their grief. Like whatever the thing is that you love to do, bring it.
Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about this aftermath of the person experiencing the loss supports everyone else. I mean, it's like you're comforting everyone, right? Everyone who ever interacted with the people that you lost, it impacts them and they kind of come to you like seeking that reassurance or validation or whatever it is that they're looking for. I want to just like talk about it. So one, people stop doing that. But also two, it's like, it's coming from a good place. So I don't want to completely get people to stop doing it. Like that's better than never talking to you or never asking about it. But can you maybe just share some experiences of times where like it hit wrong and maybe the alternative that was like something that went really well, you know? Like you put something in your book about someone came up to you at the grocery store and it was like, they just like beelined it for you. And they came with a series of questions that they wanted to know because they were struggling. And you kind of had to put on your hat of like, I'm going to help this person, which I think is crazy. I mean, they hardly knew your husband in this scenario, but they felt, you know, that they were crushed by this. And I'm not trying to say that they weren't impacted by the loss. We've talked about the ripple effects of suicide.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said of like, go talk to someone else. I don't need you coming to the wife or the brother.
Well, because one of the things I'm thinking about is the police officer who told you that now, like, you're the head of the family.
Oh, yeah.
And somebody had told my then 8-year-old that he was the man of the house.
You should have seen me on the plane when I was reading that. That came up like 3 times in the book, and every time I was like, who the F is this person? Who said this?
Yeah. So don't say that. You know, it took years. Sometimes it's still sticky. You know, you're the 8-year-old of the house. Your job is 3rd grade, play dates, maybe brush your teeth. That'd be good.
Yeah.
So I want to honor what you said first in that people want to help and they don't know what to say. And me personally, I would rather have a glitchy conversation than no conversation. But I know that that's not true for everybody. And so sometimes we're going to make mistakes and step on each other's toes. And, you know, I know some people who've had a similar loss don't want to have those conversations. I do want to have those conversations. And so I think it's a very individual journey. I was, you know, one of my very dear friends who showed up immediately told me right away, Charlotte, this is going to sound totally unfair, but you are going to have to comfort a lot of people. And she was right. It sounded totally unfair. And I did have to comfort a lot of people. And it kind of forced my own sort of growth and thinking about, like, how do I want to talk about this? How do I want to, like, how do I talk about this? And it sort of forces some immediate growth. The grocery store, you know, I have mixed feelings about that. Some people avoided me in the grocery store. I'd see them like scurry around,
Go down another aisle.
I don't need coffee after all. I'll just
Jeez. Imagine how that feels.
I know. Like,
feel
what do I have,
great either.
leprosy or something? You know?
Suicide's not contagious.
And like, you didn't ask for this. It's not like you were like, Sam, what I really think you should do. Like, why are they running away from you?
Well, it is. It's, I think people just don't know what to do.
You're right.
And they're afraid of doing the wrong thing. And I don't know.
It's going to
The
happen.
man of the house thing, that still bugs me. There are a lot of other things that people said that honestly I don't even remember anymore. And, you know, just keep showing up, I guess is, you know, we're all doing our best. I think one of the things that changes after, for me, that has changed me and how I've experienced this loss is I'm a lot more forgiving and flexible about a lot of things. I'm less flexible about, you know, listen, sugar, ask for help. Let us help you. 988, fabulous resource. You can call or text. There's just, that's the thing we wish Sam had done.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a number then.
Well, it was the long 800 number.
And how are we expecting anyone to do that?
Yeah.
Dial 10 digits, go find 10 digits.
And for perspective, when Sam died in October of 2007, the first iPhone had been released in July of 2007.
And there was like some auto number, like contacts in there back in the day, right?
Well, there were. I think everyone should just stop what you're doing, put 988 in your phone right now, everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
I put it, in my phone, I put it under A, Lifeline. So it's at the very top of my contacts. If you open up all your contacts, it's at the very top. And I kind of think phones should be just pre-programmed with 911 and 988.
100%.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, if you don't even know what that conversation looks like, still pick up the phone and call, because it could be the beginning of your conversation. And if you're feeling like someone in your orbit is suicidal, it doesn't have to be you. You can call 988 and you'll be able to talk to people. And, you know, the thing about that line is it doesn't mean some trigger effect is going to happen. It doesn't mean people are going to show up at your house. I mean, there are certain circumstances, depending on where the conversation goes, where they might try to get you help. But at the end of the day, it is a safe place to start a dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's a stranger. It can just begin that conversation.
Yeah, you're not going to get scooped up and thrown into a padded room on a 5150. Like, that's not what's going to happen.
And you're not getting an armed response.
Yeah.
You're getting a human on the other end. And it's not recorded. I think that's helpful to know. That it's not, that 988 calls are not recorded.
And you might not even know what the point of the phone call is. You got to just start the call. And I think the same as if someone is listening and they're struggling with depression, right? It's like, what can you do to try to get more information and help yourself? But it starts with that first, like, I need help.
Or if someone says, are you okay? And you say, I'm not. Because for the very first line, we are the very first line of defense for each other. And I feel very strongly that everybody should have a little bit of suicide literacy. Jay and I talk about this. You and I, we talked about this last night. And there are certain things that are just very helpful to know. And if your person seems off, trust your gut.
Yeah.
You don't need to know like the top. You don't need to Google anything. If your person seems off, then ask them. And I think it's also helpful to know that the research shows that when you ask somebody, are you thinking of suicide? If you bring up the S word,
you're never going to implement that idea in their mind.
You're not planting that idea in their head. In fact, it's the opposite. You are now demonstrating that you are a safe place to hold this conversation.
And somebody who might be feeling that way knows about our losses, are more comfortable with you too. I have found as well.
Yes.
Where they, I've had a couple people come up to me like, dude, I'm not feeling good. Like, I feel kind of suicidal. And like, but they are comfortable coming up to me because they know about the loss of my brother, So we're kind of a beacon to that,
Well, and the point you made, Charlotte, is so important. When I do police de-escalation training, we tell them, like, first of all, they have to ask that to go through their whole process, but it's like, it's hard for them to even say the word. Are you thinking about committing suicide? Are you thinking about taking your life? And we have to tell them, you're not going to give anyone that idea by asking the question. Right. And honestly, the thing that I have learned over the years that's even more like a layer deeper, you can't say, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Because if someone is planning to take their life, they're going to answer that no, and they're being honest. They're not planning to hurt themselves.
Oh, interesting.
So that's an interesting distinction. And obviously, self-harm is its own realm, right? Because there's suicidal ideation and then there's self-harm as an output, right? And so if you are supporting someone and you're thinking about that dialogue, you got to get comfortable saying that S word, because that is the door opening of you saying, can I help, without them asking.
And you don't have to know the answers too. Right. That is a place where then your next text or call can be to 988. And then they can support you supporting your person.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
you talked about people coming up to us and saying,
Yes.
you know, one thing that, yes, the police officer said I have to be the leader of the family, and like, although I did not like that at that time, it actually did help me in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I want to share that kind of intertwines with Charlotte is we had a neighbor of ours lose her husband a very long time ago. And when I pulled up to my parents' house, because it was like Grand Central there, with all the trays of lasagna, she was walking up the street and I got out of the car and she just came up to me and she just like straight out said like, I want to let you know that Julie is going to find love again. She deserves to be happy. And like, I did not want to hear that at all. I'm like, in first instinct was like, you can go ahead and put a sock in that and just, get some lasagna and you can bounce. Thanks.
Yeah.
But later on, I understood. And I'm years later, I actually thanked her for that, because you did deserve to love again, and Julie deserved to love again. Maybe not appropriate to say at that time, but
maybe wait a day or a week.
But it did serve me well, because I appreciated her saying that to me, because it was like ripping the Band-Aid off, it really was, because it's like, that's reality of it, like it's going to happen, kid. So you better put it in your head now instead of just resisting it,
Well, and we talked last night about how I think sometimes that resistance is we feel like we don't love them as much if we're willing to just move on and get over. And those two things are not related. How much you love them and, being willing to see life change now that they're not here.
And from her book, I thought about my neighbor when I read, Charlotte's book. It's really weird for me to say Charlotte. I continue to say Spider. I call Charlotte Spider because of Charlotte's Web Spider. But when I read
Spider,
when I read Spider's book, I thought about that day. And when she talked about falling in love again and things were weird and from certain people's perspective and family and all that stuff, like I totally could relate to all of that.
Well, people have their opinions, and they will,
and that's fine.
That's fine. I mean, I didn't really think about the fact that I was single until the 8-year-old said, so and so told me I'm the man of the house. That this is how I found out, and said I need you to get married again because I need a stepfather because I'm too little to be the man of the house. And obviously, the little brother was like, you are never getting married again because daddy was the best. And if you marry again, I'm going to kill that guy. And then I'm going to kill his ghost. And then I'm going to kill his ghost's ghost. So the child had very strong feelings, which naturally they had opposite strong feelings. But I remember sitting with them in the same, big chair that we fit into. And I said, listen, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a crystal ball. I have no idea. I had no intention of falling in love again. Like I'd been loved once and I was grateful, but like I was busy. And I said, but here's the thing. There's a daddy-shaped space in your heart that will be there forever. Nobody is going to take that spot. Nobody's going to take over the Jeff space. Like nobody fits in that space. But what I know about love is if someone special comes into our life, your heart will grow and there will be a new space for him. It doesn't take over the daddy space.
Yeah.
It doesn't cover it up. Your love grows. That is something I know.
I want to talk a little bit about how you both share and just kind of the impact that you've seen from that, because to me, I think there's so many people that don't share because they're thinking of sharing as like, I'm telling everyone. And it really does kind of start with like one-to-one conversations. I don't know what my question is other than I want you to just both talk about how nothing but positive reinforcement to keep doing it comes. I mean, I'm not saying every time you share, it's this glorious experience, but neither of you will stop talking about this.
Well, I want to say that, Spider definitely, she empowers me and inspires me. I mean, just for this book. And then when she, I don't know what you call it, but when you shared, where help me out, remember
Oh, the book launch.
the book launch. Thank you. The book launch. Her first book launch, she was up there speaking to all these people. And I'm just like, I love you, like, good for you. You know what I mean? Like, what a strong woman to do all of this, and just to honor everything. It was just really inspiring and empowering, and yet again, I didn't feel alone, and it was just awesome, So when,
Well, and I admire Jay. I admire you so much because, like you said, everybody's at risk for suicide. No one's immune. But certain demographics are at higher risk. And white men in their 40s and 50s are at very high risk. There are other communities as well, our veterans, our LGBTQ plus beloveds, children as young as 7, y'all. We've got work to do.
yeah,
But I think part of why Jay's voice is so powerful is that men in general don't talk about feelings. They don't talk about suicide, and it's so painful, or their own frustrations or losses. And the fact that you continue to show up and talk about it. And now listen, we don't always get 100% yay you.
Right.
And that's okay. That's part of it. But for me, I would rather have the conversations. So, and for most people, they want to have the conversation. They don't know how, or they don't know where necessarily, or they just want to see. There's so many different losses related to suicide. And so it's so important to know it's not competitive suffering. Like nobody wins. It's not better or worse. It all just sucks in its own unique way.
yeah.
And so I just feel like these are the things that can bring us together and share and listen and be curious about each other's experience and hopefully to save lives.
It's been a very long time for both of you since these losses, but there's still obviously so many unanswered questions. Like, you can't talk to your people. How have you both navigated that? Because I do think for a lot of people experiencing this journey that you're on, that's one of the biggest challenges, the unknown, the not being able to talk to them, and the anger. We touched on that a little bit in our individual interviews, but how do you both wrestle with that today?
I think my thing is just channeling into bringing awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Like we weren't able to save Jeff,
Mm-hmm.
But maybe we can just talk about Jeff a little bit, and give people these resources and save a few extra lives, so they don't have to go through what Spider and I have gone through.
We joke in my house, we don't keep the skeletons in the closets. We put them up above the mantle, and they are how we got here.
Yeah.
And so it's so healing to be able to, like we talked about language, but to be able to say their names out loud too, because suicide is just one way people die. And like you were talking about cancer, I mean, that's another way people die. So I just think it's so important to talk about, because the grief doesn't end, the love doesn't end, and the grief doesn't end. It doesn't mean it's always so heavy.
Right.
No.
We get better.
And I know I can speak for you on this, is we talk about, and when I say we, I'm talking about my parents, my wife and I, my sister-in-law, all of my everybody that knew Jeff, we talk about Jeff. And I know that you do with Sam, and for me, it's like, he's here. Like we talk about him that much, and I think that that's another part of being healing. But for me, sometimes it's a double-edged sword, because it's like I feel like he's here, but he's not, and then it's an ass kicker for me. I think that's why I always, for the rest of my life, I will always go through this roller coaster of a little bit of grief here and there, but then a lot of celebration. A little bit of grief here and then a little celebration. You know, again, last night we were talking about a friend of mine that I am getting in the pool industry, and he was helping me on an electrical job. For the first time ever, you know, like his mannerisms of how he was using his hands to work on the electrical and stuff was like, took my breath away. You know, like I said, I was like, oh my gosh, that's like, dude, your hands, you work like my brother, dude. Like you look like, you know, and so those things are going to happen. It's like he's alive. It's very strange. It's very strange.
But I do.
But it's healthy to talk about Sam and Jeff.
Well, and honoring them.
Yes, honoring them.
That is a thing, you know, and some cultures, some people, they're just not comfortable with that. They don't want to always be talking about that. But I do think there is so much healing that happens, not only for you to be able to remember them and have them be a part of your life, but for other people to see the positive impact of that. And I think you both should just share a little bit about like your favorite ways that you honor them, because sometimes I don't think people even know like where to begin. What? Well, I know you have some silly ones, so
I got a lot of silly ones. Okay, in the spirit of entrepreneurism,
yes.
Okay, this is awesome. My brother, after we would install like a piece of pool equipment or a salt cell or whatever, we would wrap up the job and clean up, and then Jeff would like, and I would be walking in the truck, and he would. This is probably going to be a little loud, but it has to be. And get to the truck, and he would just be like, "Making money, oh yeah!" It's like you just you know. But I say that all the time, you know, like oh yeah, like cha-ching, like that kind of a thing, you know. A lot of sayings, you know. Cup checks were another one, you know, or
it's
just
a guy thing.
It's a lot of guy. Well, I mean,
no, I know
it's
brothers.
A lot of brother stuff, you know, is it's alive. The memory is alive. What about you?
One of the ways Sam and his cousin Zach used to have a way they would greet each other on the phone. So I knew that Sam was talking to Zach if I'd hear him go, hey, hey. Hey.
Yeah.
And so now when Zach and I talk to each other, that's how we always start. Hey, hey, hey. It's
the best.
It's just it's so silly. And sometimes, so Sam is buried on along Forest Lawn, and you know, we always wave and say hi when we drive on our way to the Hollywood Bowl or wherever we're going. And you know, depending on how things are going, sometimes it's a one finger wave and sometimes it's not. Sometimes we blow a kiss. Sometimes, the universal symbol of ill will. But, you know, it's all the feelings are allowed.
I had a moment with both of you individually where I was like, okay, I don't want to say, you know, this was meant to be or whatever. Like, I hate when people kind of try to chalk any loss up to like God's plan really bothers me, but just like this was meant to happen, you know, the universe, whatever. It's like, I don't want to hear any of that bullshit. But at the same time, I feel like with both of you and your stories, there's so much that's like, this would never have been if they were not gone. And the thing that kind of brought me comfort is knowing they were suffering so much while they were here. And they no longer are suffering. It doesn't take away the suffering. It's now just transferred. But they're not in pain. And you guys have been able to, not like it was right away, but like you're in this completely different place in your life that wouldn't have been. And so there's this dichotomy there of like, you would never wish that they are gone.
Yeah.
But like none of what is would be. I think about like your family structure, like that. And, you know, if you want to hear more, go listen to our one-on-one conversation. But like you and your husband had great first loves and found each other, and you two are meant to be. And it never would have happened. How do you wrestle with that? Because I feel like that's probably a feeling a lot of people have, whether it was a loss one way or another. It's this feeling of like, when you do get to this place where you're existing,
For me, I think of it as I can't reconcile these two things. And so for me, the work is learning to hold both. That I will always be sad about Sam. And I am very happy. And I have a life that's full joy and children and grandchildren. And I can't make those two things fit.
Mm-hmm.
So I just hold them both.
I like how she breaks that down. You know, I've never really looked at it as like two separate things. I've always tried to intertwine it, you know, together and look at it as like a meant to be kind of thing. I don't know if there is a right or wrong way of looking at it, but I can say this, that there's a lot of good shit that happened too out of this tragedy, you know? And I think that wouldn't be unless I was doing the right thing and not being a roach about things, you know? Like I could have just been, you know, doing lines of cocaine and drinking Jack Daniels and just going, you know what, screw it, I'm done with life. And then none of all the goodness would come to my way, you know, and in my family's way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of good things that happened. Like my niece has a great life and Julie has an awesome life, you know, and you couldn't have written, you know, I watched her graduate high school and it's like I look back and I'm like, you know, you couldn't have written a better chapter, you know, out of that really shitty tragedy, you know, and like things with my life too. There's been a lot of people that have come into my life because of that loss. Like I would have never had the connections with all these folks, you know, if my brother didn't die. So it's really weird. It's so weird. Like it's just like a, sorry for my language, but it's a mind fuck.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know?
Mm-hmm. I think that is all true. And I remembered the other thing I was going to say, because I think we honor Jeff and we honor Sam more by living our lives with love and joy. I didn't know Jeff, but I know enough to know that that's what he would have wanted for you, for Julie, for his daughter.
Totally.
I know that that's what Sam would have wanted.
Mm-hmm.
He would have wanted us to live with joy and passion and all the goodness.
Yep.
He would have wanted that. He did want that. He just didn't see how he was part of it. And that, to me, is the tragedy.
Yeah.
That is. Is there anything that you both want to share about just what you understand now? And that's not to say it would have gone different back then had you known this, but I feel like the world has evolved with mental health, but you really don't jump into that until you're impacted by it. Like mental health was becoming more talked about when I had my journey, but I didn't know anything about it until it affected me. And so I just want to give you a chance to share anything like now with all these years of hindsight. What sticks with you in how you think about other people navigating, whether it's someone seeing a friend or family member struggling, or if they're struggling themselves? What do you know today that you maybe want to share?
The first thing that comes to my mind is just like seek help right away, like ASAP.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so many resources now not to, you know, like there's no excuses now, right? Like
Agreed.
that's just how that's how I feel now, you know? I mean, we lost Jeff and Sam within the same, you know, pocket of time. 07, 09, 7 or 9. I'm sorry, 7 or 6.
7.
I mean, a couple of years apart.
Yeah,
right,
very
you know?
close.
And only separated by 2 towns, which is weird in itself too. But then totally different than now. Like now it's like, dude, you have no excuse. Like you have it all. You got 988. You got so many different resources to like get you back on track.
And it can be tricky. So don't give up, because sometimes the first call is not the last call.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And physical health and mental health, we're learning more and more how those are entwined, and like Lyme disease or other chemical imbalances. Sleep.
Huge.
And
we were talking last night.
Nutrition,
Yeah.
exercise, like that stuff. Get your brain going, you know, like proper rest, proper nutrition, exercise, things like that, you know, and stuff that you can't control too.
That's right.
Right.
And people are so different. Bodies are so individual. So what worked for somebody else, if that's not working for you, keep asking, keep plugging. If the doctor says it's going to be like this forever, there's no answer, find a new doctor.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's this element of something isn't wrong with you. Your brain is different. Like, you should not feel like you are less than or worth less or whatever because you're struggling with this. It just means you need resources.
Yeah.
Yes.
How do we end this, you two?
Read the book.
Well, if anyone listening hasn't listened to both of our individual
Gotta
episodes,
plug that book, man. I mean, seriously, like, if somebody that is listening to this has lost somebody to suicide, this book is wonderful to read. If you haven't read a book about that,
yeah,
you know, like, this is a great book. You know,
and
2%
Charlotte
profit
and I
sharing.
talked
Just
more
kidding.
about it, just the two of us. But I think you're right. It's like listening to other stories is such a great way to find connection. You know, if you're not ready to go to a group or whatever, read someone else's point of view.
But there were so many nuggets that I got out of that book.
Read the end, the final that we were reading last night.
Is my napkin marker still in here?
I'll
I'm just
be able
kidding.
to find it for you. I know exactly where it is.
Shoot, I forgot what I was gonna say.
We're doing pretty good for three people that
They
get
could
what we're
chat
saying.
for hours.
It's right. It's that page. Yep, the second to last one before the acknowledgments, I think.
Sam's death will provide the barometer for measuring all their future losses. You know, that's, when she said that in the book, like, it just like makes sense. You know, it makes sense because that's exactly what happens to me. This is another one. Spider talks about her children becoming a father. They will think about their daddy, but let's just plug in Jeff. One day, they'll look into the innocent young eyes of their own children. See, that kicks my ass too, you know, because I'm a new-ish dad, you know, and it's a reminder.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I really appreciate you. There's so many things that I appreciate in this book because I can relate to it. But it's nice to know that somebody else has that perspective. You know, like, you went beyond your own perspective and you were thinking about your children's perspective. Like, you have a very deep empathy for your children and looking at, and trying really hard to look through their eyes too. I just thank you for that.
Something that hits me about the fact that resonates with you is, you know, you look at your daughter and I'm sure think I could never leave her. And that's the difference between just feeling sad or not good and having depression and suicidal ideation. Because it's not that your brother didn't love his daughter, that Sam didn't love your sons. That's not it. But that's how you know that they were sick.
Big time
right?
sick.
It's not that you don't have something to live for. That's not what causes suicide. And the way that you reflect on that, I think, the way I read it is like, your sons could never understand when they were kids, and they probably still don't want to say that they understand why their dad did it. But there's a way different feeling when you understand it wasn't just quitting. It was your brain telling you that that was the only solution. Having kids you love was not going to be the differentiating factor.
No.
For me, suicide is no different than like an undiagnosed cancer or sudden heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
It just looks uglier from the outside,
Mm-hmm.
but it is still, it's that disease that takes away our loved one. So I think how I would want to wrap up
Please.
is, first of all, thanking your audience for listening, because this can be a hard conversation to hear, but it's so important. So I would start by thanking them for listening, and just acknowledging how important that is, and that the journey does.
Thank you both for doing this. I'm so glad we did a roundtable. I think this was really valuable.
Can I just say one more thing, that I visioned this, like doing something like this with Spider, like a couple of years ago. And I remember specifically telling her, I'm like, if there's ever like an opportunity where we could like collab and do something together, I would really like to do that with you. She's like, yeah, okay. And then here we are. And it's such an honor to do this with you, you know what I mean? And like being able to share this together with other people, and knowing that if they meet somebody, if they meet a Spider out there, or they meet a Jay out there, then they get to be empowered. They can empower each other, and gain perspective in just different ways. It's really important to be curious and get a better understanding from different, like really quick, like I understand more about my sister-in-law's loss because of Charlotte, and that's important. Anyway, I will stop.
No, I'm so glad that we did this. We're
never going to stop talking.
Yeah, we won't. Yeah.
Well, and this is just, to me, this is the start, because even when I started telling people that I was coming to LA and we were doing this, I have 3 other interviews in the next month of people impacted by suicide or who attempted suicide. And I think you're right, Charlotte, that it's uncomfortable for people to even listen. But as soon as we start saying this is a conversation we want to have, they start coming. And so we just have to keep talking about it.
Yeah.
We have to keep normalizing that this isn't a taboo subject. This is like something that really impacts lives everywhere. We were looking around the restaurant last night and trying to attach the statistics to who was in the room. And so it's not that you're alone, it's that no one is talking about it. And I'm so glad that you two wanted to talk about it with me. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for
Thanks
hosting.
for the plot. Yeah, thank you.